And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first game of the day. Night Elf versus Orc is going to be the matchup, and of course, starting in the upper right-hand corner in the red will be Moon, and down here in the bottom left will be Revenant. So we can talk about the way that this matchup is going to start. And if you're new, we'll take the first game to give you guys a little bit of an overview. Night Elf is a kind of fragile, mythical race, if you want to look at it that way. And Orc is kind of the big, bad bruisers that are going to beat everybody up, right? Simplistically, that's what you're going to watch here. A bunch of Orcs fighting a bunch of Elves. But of course, a little bit deeper than that is the way that this matchup usually goes. Orc have some very strong individual units, but Night Elf, especially in the current meta, are just incredibly powerful. Now, there have been some very recent changes, but I think one thing that we should look for is the opening heroes that have been chosen. Now, Warcraft 3 is very centered around the heroes that each race picks, and just to start things right off the bat, we're going to see a Keeper of the Grove and a Farseer build. Now, Keeper of the Grove is one of, if not the strongest hero in the game right now, due to his level 1 creeping abilities with Trance and Force of Nature, but specifically its Entangling Roots that is just such a strong spell. When you combine that with the ability to creep with a building, that's right, it's a building, it's a tree, it does it all. The Ancient of War can uproot itself and actually assist the early Night Elf units in dealing with these early creep camps. Now, this is a great way for them to get a head start on strong camps that give a lot of gold, items, and experience to early heroes, and it's something that no other race can do, so it definitely gives them a leg up. Now, this is the Farseer. If you played the single-player campaign or the multiplayer, you know this guy, Claws of Attack +6. Tell me what other item you'd want more. Well, maybe a Sobi Mask or something along those lines. But for Claws of Attack +6, that basically means this Keeper of the Grove is going to be dealing a lot of damage. And when you build a Farseer, especially with this wolf that he has summoned, this is going to be a lot to deal with normally, especially as it harasses these wisps, the workers that are gathering resources there. Now, this is unusual to see a Farseer, I guess, specifically because the Blade Master is the only other hero really in contention for the best in the game. And you can just look at these Claws of Attack +6 ranged auto attacks here from the Keeper of the Grove. They just deal so much damage. There's no possible way that a Farseer can stand up to that. Now, the Farseer is a little bit unusual, like I said, because the main hero for the Orcs is called the Blade Master. He runs around, he deals critical strikes, he wind walks away, and that means he disappears and moves super fast. Everything you basically want from an early game hero, but instead it's the Farseer who's going to be using these wolves to harass the enemy workers. It shouldn't actually be very impactful, but it will do things like deny some vision out on the map, and hopefully even be able to get a couple of kills on these wisps out here. That comes with 2 Spirit Wolves, so you're going to see those be, I guess, really the only impactful early game forces here for the Night Elf. Now, the unit you see attacking up there in the upper left is called a Huntress. They have bouncing glaives, and in general, they're sort of the beefy body of the Night Elf army early on. They do move pretty quickly, and if it's nighttime, they have the ability to stand still, just like all female Night Elf units, and turn invisible, which can be actually really interesting if you can wall somebody in their base if they can't see your unit. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, because I don't want to get super in-depth just to start off the day. It is pretty normal, at least from what I'm seeing so far. And once again, I'm still trying to gauge whether or not there's going to be any sort of unique moments here. One of those actually could be the one you're seeing right there on your screen, a very early expansion being taken by Moon. Now, expansions are it's a big investment, right? You've got to build a whole new building. You've got to build another resource generating building on the resource that you're capturing, the gold mine, for instance. It's got to be entangled. But hey, let's watch one of our first impactful fights of the game. Looking at the Farseer dropping dangerously low. The right clicks coming through. A couple of more would have been a spell disaster. but luckily that healing potion comes through and it's going to heal that Farseer back up into attacking range. Now, there you saw the power of Entangle. It just entangles the grunt, it can't move, it takes damage, it can't run, and it goes down. So each individual unit is incredibly impactful in Warcraft 3. If you're used to playing another RTS like StarCraft where units die all the time, this is a lot different. Units are expensive, they take a lot of resources, a lot of time to build, and realistically, if you lose a lot of early game units, it's going to be incredibly difficult. Now, one thing to note here is that we aren't seeing any real attacks after that. Notably, once you push forward, take out a unit, you want to either push in for the kill or just pull back and take that advantage to mean that it's safe to get this expansion running back at home. Now, you'll notice there's still no Blade Master here for the Orc player Revenant from Singapore. Now, I always think that it's a little bit strange because before this most recent patch, if you could pick one hero to just have 4 of or something, a Blade Master would probably be that, or, you know, Keepers. But with the most recent patch, there were a few changes to Blade Master so that after he finishes his Windwalk and comes back to being visible again, there's a brief cooldown on his ability. So he's actually a little bit more vulnerable than before, and so that might be one reason for the change away. You'll notice a lot of very strong items here, giving extra strength, agility, and attack damage to this Keeper. And so that's going to allow him, and of course the rest of the army, to deal a ton of damage here and really deal with these early creep camps incredibly quickly. So you'll notice that the brand new Shadow Hunter is going to be dealing a lot of healing. Healing, that's his job. And realistically, you're just going to be seeing a lot of heals coming out of him. That's basically the reason that he exists. So you're just going to see quite a bit of healing waves that's going to chain through every unit and heal up the first 4 pretty easily. And I'll highlight that as soon as it happens, because we're seeing nothing but creeping so far. The only problem is that if you'll just take a look at each player's army, you'll notice that Moon's army is much, much larger. You can see that illustrated by the chicken drumstick in the upper right-hand corner. Let's see what was purchased. I believe that is a staff. Yeah, so staff picked up there by Moon. That'll allow him to save one of his units and teleport it to safety, so just keep an eye on that. Once again, trying to keep an eye on the unit counts as well. Looks like we're about 40 out of 50. There for Moon, and I haven't seen what Revenant's army supply is, so I'm just going to try to ferry that information to you guys as soon as possible. Getting the creep finished off in the last second, teleporting back home, and what is the item to be bought? Just picking up some... I saw a sale there. Okay, what are we waiting to buy here? Keep an eye on that. Wand of Mana Stealing and Lightning Shield. So, well, those are both pretty explanatory. Also getting Shamans here for Revenant. There's a few strange things here, and I'm definitely not used to seeing a game play out this way, not only because I'm a little bit new to this, but because I'm new to watching Revenant's specific play style. But let's see how this is going to transpire as we do continue seeing these creeping. Honestly, just to give it a little bit of a shout out, I'm a little bit used to seeing the Back to Warcraft overlay that tells me all about the juicy items and heroes that have been purchased and bought here. So in lieu of that, I'm just going to do my very best to keep track of heroes, levels, items, and the billion and the million stats that you have to really keep an eye on this early on. But just to kind of highlight a few of the main characteristics of the game right now, it's 1 hero versus 2, which means that overall the Keeper of the Grove for Moon, because as a single hero, will be a little bit higher in levels and abilities, but he won't have the versatility that multiple heroes will give Revenant. Now, coming in here and trying to cancel this expansion, this would be absolutely huge. The Huntress is focusing down the expansion in the back and trying to move away from these grunts as they try to get on top of them. Well, a couple of the Huntresses dropping dangerously low here. Wand of Lightning is actually dealing quite a bit of area of effect damage, but it's not enough here. I think Moon is just having such a strong time here, he not only is managing to keep most of his Huntresses alive and away from these heroes, but even with these Serpent Wards, the archers and the range damage, his piercing damage, just way too strong. When the grunts drop in the foreground, there's nothing to protect the squishy shamans and the orc heroes behind. This is a very dangerous situation here for Revenant, and with his supply dropping down lower and lower, it looks like Moon might just be taking a decisive victory in this fight. Not even worrying about the Serpent Wards there. He might just be winning this game with creeps. The Dryads just fighting an army, fighting a war all their own. And oh, by the way, he's got an entire army of real units there in the back. That's going to do it. A GG comes out. And in less than 10 minutes, Moon dominates Revenant to claim victory in our first match of the day. If you guys wanted a taste of how strong Moon is as a player, I think you just got a chance to see what was an incredible display of skill.